Thank you very much for being here. My question, I think you've addressed it just a little bit, but what uses do you support of the permanent fund?
So I support currently the present uses of the permanent fund that it's designed for. And I've introduced legislation the last 2 years to take some of that permanent fund money and to further our education of our children. And that means early childhood education. That means putting money into our earliest children in our state. And that's the purpose of the permanent fund. That's what it exists for. And frankly, we need to recognize that permanent fund is throwing off money that we rely upon every year to fund public education. We are using it for that. In fact, the permanent fund funds a great deal of our educational budget. That's what it was created for. And the investments in the permanent fund generate income that we then use to fund a good part of our public education. In fact, by some measure, as much as 1/3 of our public education budget comes from that fund and the resources of oil and gas in our state. Now realize, of our entire state budget, 2/3 of our state budget is public education, higher education and primary education. And so when you realize that education is such an important and big part of our budget, and you realize that that fund is supporting up to 1/3 of that expenditure, then the question is, do I support the use of it? Of course I do. Do I support using more of it? Yes, I do. Now, some of the suggestions in this campaign always suggested as a silver bullet, we should use more of it and we should use it for different things. We should put it into the private sector, into state agencies, and to privatize certain things, including early childhood education. And let me tell you, for those in this campaign that make it sound like that's a new idea, I've got to tell you, along with, frankly, every idea that I've heard so far for job creation, and I can't debate the Congress with them because I can't just really put Ben on the spot, but frankly, every one of these ideas gets introduced every session. Going to the permanent fund gets introduced every session, and we have to ask ourselves, are people like Peter and me and the other legislators that you know, Representative Queen, are we blind to the issue? Are we so clueless that we can't see these easy silver bullets in front of us? Or do we ask ourselves, why doesn't that legislation really advance itself? And I've got to tell you, some of the reasons those bills, all of them, don't always advance themselves, have good debate, good reasons, good explanations. Not that I agree with them. You probably learned tonight, I don't always go along with the party. I don't always go along with the leadership. I don't always go along with the flow. But the reality is that when John McCain gives a single vote, comes down on the floor and says that he killed healthcare, he didn't do that by himself. He did that with a lot of people behind him and supporting him. There's no one legislator who has so much power. They're holding up any one of these bills. And the suggestion or thinking of anybody, this one person or one senator who does that doesn't understand what's really happening in our state economy.
Let me tell you why it's not being done. We have legislators that walk out of subcommittees and don't want to be on the record because they're worried about the next cycle. They're worried about the next election. As governor, I'm going to serve 4, hopefully 8 years for you. I don't have to worry about it. And they're going to tell you Apodaca wants to raise your funds. I can tell you right now that we are underfunding education by almost 6%. I can tell you right now that 61% of our kids have no early child intervention, early child development. And the experts tell us our plan is going to cost about $150 million. We actually think all we need to do is tap about $50 million of that out of the education fund. But the reason it's not being done is there's no leadership. Because we have legislators that don't want to get on the record. And that's it. Bottom line is we've been talking about this for a long time. I have twin boys that are 9. It's time we start in early family intervention. It's time we start in early child development and education and preschool. We're not going to privatize anything. We're going to invest into your children, into your grandchildren. The reason 30%, 40% of our kids can't read at 3rd grade level is they don't have any child development. When my kids were in kindergarten, I literally went to kindergarten teachers and said, what's the difference between my children and them? You know, kindergarten teachers can literally point to the kids in their class, 5-year-olds, who aren't going to make it. And when you track it back, it's poverty, it's lack of early child education. So this governor's not afraid to tap into those funds, and the reason is it's a hot button. And our political leaders, some of them, not all of them, are afraid to be on the record. Let's hold them accountable. And that funds is there to help us educate. By the way, Once we start educating our kids and getting them prepared for their opportunities, and they see opportunities, we're not spending $200 million in crime. We're not spending 57% of New Mexicans on some type of government assistance. It all starts in education. And we sit on $22 billion. Uh-oh, there's that anger coming out again. I've been told I'm kind of sometimes too angry. I am a Latino and I'm very passionate. And I have 9-year-olds. And I'm 15 generation New Mexican. And we've been talking about this for 15 generations. That's so what? And it's time we start investing to our children and our future. And I'm tired of next session, next subcommittee. As governor, we will have special sessions until we get it done.
Thank you. I love it when it gets exciting. Yeah. So to answer your question, publicly owned state bank. Right now, our $20 billion is being handled by known banking criminals like Wells Fargo, by the people who Enroned us, by the people who did the housing bubble, by the people who enabled Bernie Madoff, and not a single one of them went to jail. And we're saying, here, take our $20 million, we're fine. And all the politicians act like that's normal. Okay? So, North Dakota has a state-owned, publicly owned state bank for 100 years. They've never laid off any employees. They've never had a budget deficit. They borrow money from themselves at low interest during bad times. They loan it out during good times. Now, if we loan it out to community banks, if we partner with community banks for development, we have fractional lending. So for every dollar we loan out, $10 is suddenly created in the economy. We're making money instead of having the feds make it and export it out the country. By growing the roots by keeping it here. Right now we've got $4 billion in operating funds, $4 billion just in there. Yes, Eichenberg will tell you he's got $4 billion he's sitting on every year. All right, and who handles that? We pay other banks to handle that. We all this talk about cannabis. We're going to grow hemp and all that stuff. Well, it's illegal to put cannabis money in a bank by the feds. We need a state bank, or else none of these plans work. So we capitalize with our own money. We invest in ourselves. And of course, we do early childhood education. But that's only the tip of what we can do when we take control of our own money.
So the next question goes to Dick Lawrence.
I would like to, do you hear me okay now? Yeah. I'd like to have you address the problem of jobs in the most meaningful way, and I'll ask you to do it this way. What is the biggest problem we have in creating jobs, and how would you propose to solve those problems?
Well, I think I'm first. One, Peter and I have become friends on the campaign trail, and we both see eye to eye on many, many things. Investing, putting the money in our state. We're probably the only two talking about that, so I agree with Peter 100%. How do we create jobs? What do we do about the jobs? First of all, let me make this very clear. Peter's correct. We sit on $4 billion in banks on average of 6 years. Makes $160 million a year for banks. I will. 95% of our economy is small business. We do nothing to help small business grow. We need to start investing into small business and give them opportunities, capital, to expand. Once we start investing into 95% of our economy, small business, then we're going to grow our economy. But we have to train. Those jobs today that we're talking about, they're not the jobs of the future. They're jobs today. Leadership. Leadership. Let me tell you something, man. Here's what kills me. Everybody running in this race, everybody I talk to, state employees, political leaders, we got to cut, we got to cut, we got to cut, we got to cut, we got to cut. But we sit on $22.6 billion. I never hear about invest, invest, invest. By the way, folks, I can name you cities, communities, states that have invested in themselves to get out of exactly what we're in right now, and they've had to go into debt. So we're going to invest into your kids. We're going to invest into training programs. We're going to invest in early child development. The jobs are here today. We have to start investing to ourselves. And once we start doing that, Again, it's about training, but it's about lack of leadership. And that's the opportunities there. So I'd ask you, go to our website, apo18.com, my nickname is Apple, and go look at our video. Go look at our platform. I'll lay out exactly how we're going to do it, and it is partly training and partly investing, and investing into our state.
So I love specifics, because I'm the detail guy. So thank you for asking for specifics. So let me just talk about two possibilities, because that's a really big question. One of them is food, okay? 94% of the food consumed in New Mexico comes from out of state. That's over $15 billion a year, just leaves our state down the rat hole. Now at the community college, they have these beautiful aquaponic domes that are a little bigger than this room here, $6,000 startup. The only input once you get it to $6,000 is fish food and 2 gallons of water a month. Then you grow fish and food. By the time you get about 6 of these domes, you become commercially viable, so you can actually have a business, or your family can just do one. The state should be helping people produce food, keep the money here. Second thing, let me use Las Vegas as a case in point, because you have to invest in what's already there. Right now, Hobbs is booming, San Juan is dying, San Juan County, because they've never diversified. They just kept investing in the same old, and San Juan messed up, Hobbs did great. In Las Vegas, San Miguel, they've gone from 17,000 population in Las Vegas down to 10,000. Things are killing. I was talking with some of the businessmen there the other day, and what we're finding is that they don't know what to do with the water, these sakias, they don't know what to do with that. So we fixed the water problem. Then they used to grow wheat, but they're not growing anything else. So let's grow hemp. We can do 2 crops a year, best thing in the country. Okay? They have an old particle board plant that's shut down because they can't produce anymore. Guess what? Hemp makes great building materials. Okay? So by just going in and sitting with the state bank must go to each community, do them some education, and then say, what are your needs? So in Las Vegas specifically, fix the water, get the hemp production, revitalize the particle board. You do that case by case around the state. That's how you get the jobs.
So I've been a businessman my whole life, and you asked for specifics, and I want to give you specifics, but I want to understand one thing, which is when we talk about jobs, we have to talk about something that will create jobs today. New Mexico needs those jobs today. We're worse than unemployment in the country. And so we need to be talking about strategies that will create jobs 5 years, 10 years from now, but also jobs today. Let me tell you how we do it today. Today, right now, we have about $1 billion of capital outlay money. You all know the process of capital outlay. New Mexico is considered the worst in the country in capital outlay, and we deserve that. Because in a foolish way, we take a certain amount of money every year, and we say the Senate gets a third, the House gets a third, the governor gets a third, and everybody carves it up. You've heard it called the pork bill, or you've heard it called the Christmas tree bill. And because of inefficiencies and a lack of leadership, we have about $1 billion right now that is unspent and is available today. Money that should be putting people to work today, building roads, building schools, building government facilities, putting solar on buildings. That money is available today, and in my first year as governor, I'm going to work with the legislature to make sure that that $1 billion is no longer stranded. And I've been working on that for the last 2 years with Tim Keller in legislation to do exactly that, but I can't do it as a senator anymore. I've got to do it as a governor to completely reform the way we do capital outlay. That's $1 billion that we can spend now to create jobs and to build that economic wealth in Mexico. The second part is a long-term strategy, and frankly, I'll note that even when we talk about the Congressman's economic plan, there's something terribly missing from that, candidly, which is any mention of higher education, the role of higher education in job creation. It's not even mentioned there. How do you plan a new economy and jobs when our university is not at the table and an integral part of that? We need to be educating students who are creating the jobs for our future and staying here. And you've heard the statistic, it's right. We have 57,000 young people between 30 and 60. I say young people because I'm 56, so that sounds young to me. We've had 57,000 people between 30 and 60 leaving our state during this administration. Those jobs are gone. They're not coming back. We've got to keep the investment in our young people here by creating an education and a workforce that meets the needs here. And the last thing I'll say is we appropriate $50 million a year for job creation in New Mexico. This administration hasn't even been able to spend it. They can't even find the jobs to create jobs, and it's a lack of vision, leadership, and frankly, experience like mine, which is somebody who has for years made a payroll, as I do today, and employed hundreds of people in my own businesses.
Next, the last question is Ann Altman.
I'd like to go back to the question that this woman asked. I've been a state employee under Bruce King, under Jerry Apodaca, under Richardson. You're going to have thousands and thousands of employees. You're going to be CEO of quite an organization. And other than raising everybody's salaries by 3% a year and filling the hundreds of jobs that we don't have enough money to fill now, how are you going to manage the state employee resources?
So the most important thing to answer that question and address the earlier question is to renew our respect for state employees. Right now, state employees, particularly our teachers, are feeling put upon. Right? They become victimized and they become the enemy. And the teachers who taught my three daughters in public schools feel put upon and beat upon, and they've left the profession. And that happens to state employees up and down during this administration. And you know that. You know, I've employed lots of people in my career, and we tried to always, from the day I opened my law practice, I paid for my employees' health insurance when I had one employee. Because I respected that employee, and that was more important than me even making any money in my first year, was to make sure that she had health insurance for her and her children. There's a priority that you show for people that work for you, and I've done that throughout my career. It's about money, sure. My employees want to make a good salary, and I try to pay them the best that I can so that they stay with me, and most of my employees have been with me for 10 years or more. But more important than what I pay them is a sense that they're doing something great with me, alongside me. When we represent clients, when we go to trial, when we take on Federal Express and big corporations and international corporations, and when we meet them, they feel like their mission is greater than just the dollar. And that's what's not happening in this administration. They haven't made state employees realize they're part of something greater, which is delivering the needs, the services, helping people in our state. And that's where it all starts. When you talk about how it's going to change the state employees and bring them back to state government, I want to make them feel like they're part of something bigger, the way that I do with my own employees. And that's the way we do it with teachers and on down all of state government employees. And I'll tell you, I was happy to vote against Anna Scandera for our cabinet secretary. Again, I lost that vote. You probably gathered. I lose votes from time to time, but it's not because I'm tired of the fight. It's because I relish the fight, and I see when the fight is needed. And what this administration has not done is put agency heads, department heads in positions where they respect people that have been underneath them throughout an entire career and a history, and to take that knowledge and that experience and then grow with it and build upon it. That's what I'll do differently. Cabinet secretaries, perhaps not Peter's suggestion that we're going to have committees decide who the cabinet secretaries are going to be. I'm going to find the right people, people of excellence, who are going to be true leaders in their own departments and make their employees feel part of something greater, which is to entirely new New Mexico and to transform the way that we see our state.
Thank you. So you know I'm a political outsider, and that gives me a big, big advantage. Here's why. I've done 20 years, I've done youth alcohol prevention in this state. I've been to half the high schools in the state, literally. I stopped counting when I hit about 250,000 students I talked to. When I started my career, I would go into these schools to talk to them, and the schools would sit there and say, "How did you get the money to do this?" And I said, "I went and asked the health department." And then I talked to the health department. And I said, "Look, I can go in all these schools." And they go, "What? How can you get to the schools?" And I went and asked them. It's that simple. You bring the right people in, and I don't have to pretend that I'm the expert. My wheelhouse is public health promotion. Everything else, I'm going to have to rely on state employees. That's why I want to respect them, not hire them by committee, but have them recommended by their peers and vet them so we truly have civil service. That's when we're going to start to respect employees. That's when we're going to start to make government better. Oh, by the way, this doesn't relate exactly to employees, but it's important. I'm going to ask the media to have a pooled reporter, and I'm going to have that reporter camp in my office. There will be no closed-door meetings. Okay, none. Okay. We got to start, it's not just say transparent, we got to actually do it. So this is going to help me when I call up a department head or when I bring a department head in, there's a reporter there. And everything's on the record, everything's on the up and up. Plus, I want to listen to people, not just employees. I'm going to have open door day twice a month. Whoever drove the furthest goes first. One day we'll be in Santa Fe, one day we'll move around. Minimum 5 minutes with the governor, plus staff to find out what your problems are and direct you to state agencies. It's about creating a whole network of help. That's what I want to do, and I can do that because I'm not an insider. I don't have to pay off favors with my cabinet positions. So hopefully that answers your questions.
Well, I agree. Bottom line is, it's about morale and leadership. It's about giving them the resources. Look, my successes, whether it's playing football, going through cancer, dealing with doctors, private sector, we put the best people on the bus and get the best people in the right positions. And that starts with leadership. We have great employees. They have been beaten down so bad, and then we award them with, oh, we're not going to give you a raise. So they literally make less money today than they did 10 years ago. So it starts there. You know, I'll say a real quick story. My properties in New Mexico, when I came back to take over our properties, had the highest turnover of employees in the country. Within 2 years, we became the number one operation with less turnover. And my CEO said, "What are you doing different?" I said, "A third of our staff, when I got there, was making minimum wage. And we tripled their salaries. And people stopped leaving." Folks, people are leaving New Mexico, so we're not paying them. Teachers are leaving the profession because we're not paying them. We have a new process. We haven't changed the pay structure for teachers in 16 years. We haven't paid city employees a raise in 12 years. We sit on $22.6 billion. So it's about leadership. It's about willing to do it. It's not worried about subcommittees. It's not worried about committees. It's about getting things done and not worried about our political careers and stepping stones and where the governor's office is going to take us. Because the governor's office, after 8 years, you have my word. I'm going to watch my children to college. Hopefully one of them playing the PGA Golf Tour. But it's about leadership and it's about investing and about giving the resources. And we need to give the resources, the training, and the capabilities to our state employees. But it's almost a third of our economy. That's what we're doing. Thank you.
We'll do one more question, and then we'll give these gentlemen 3 minutes each to wrap up. The last question goes to Bill McCollum.
I'm going to be a heretic. I have heard, how do I get the Democratic nomination? And frankly, I don't give a shit. I want to know how I get the Democratic governor. Now, there was some disdain, I believe, some mention, oh, you hear all these things in the primary, after the primary they move to the middle. I don't think there's a person in here who's going to vote for a Republican governor again. But that's not going to win and give us a Democratic governor. How do we get to the people in the middle, to the ones who really decide who gets elected?
Thank you. So, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you because I think run into the middle is only for the middle. And the middle doesn't make sense anymore. My friends tell me I'm so far to the left, and when I meet my friends who are really far to the right, we overlap. So right now it's not this middle, it's shaving off the most energetic part of the party, which is the progressive part. Part of the reason why I'm in the race, of course I'm in it to win it, but if I don't get to win it, I get to have the other candidates commit to all kinds of great things. And this is what's really important, to commit. I was in Hobbs last week and it was really funny. I started talking about $12 an hour living minimum wage, which Representative Lujan Grisham supports. If you do the math, 52 weeks a year, 40 hours a week, no days off, no vacation time. At the end of the year, you're $360 above the poverty line for a family of four. So I said that. Then she stands up and she looks at me and I said, Peter, I support $15 an hour. Now that's the kind of disconnect that loses races, okay? Because she doesn't support it by co-sponsoring the national bill. She hasn't changed it on her platform or press releases. It's the I'm going to say anything to get a vote stuff, run to the middle stuff. That's a guaranteed strategy for losing. Progressives are hungry. People are hungry. And most candidates are looking at it like it's Game of Thrones. Okay? Oh yeah, just say the right things and sit there and we'll get this non-existent middle. Sorry to disagree with you. Clearly I'm not your candidate. But I'm trying to save our party by representing the people who are hungry for real change. Thank you.
So it's a great question. I'm glad it's the last one. Because we need to recognize that we need to do, frankly, more than Peter's suggesting, which is, look, we're progressives here. We're proud of what we believe in, what brings us together here tonight. But there's a lot of people that are not here tonight. There's a lot of people that are not voting in New Mexico. I'm a Hispanic New Mexican from southern New Mexico. I'm a farming family, and I got to tell you, and Carmen knows as well, there's a lot of people in our valley, there's a lot of people in this town that are not here tonight, that won't feel comfortable being here tonight, that are not being served by state government because they've been alienated, they've been shut out, they don't have the lobbyists, they don't feel like they have conservation voters or other lobbyist groups representing them, and they don't have them representing them. We need a governor who can get people excited about the fact that the governor is there for them, not for the lobbyists, not for the special interests, not for the big money contributors, but somebody who really understands what it is to go work in the fields, because that's what I did. Somebody who worked on a farm, who drove a tractor, who harvested crops, somebody who realizes what hard work is and frankly is proud and excited about hard work, somebody who can go out to the working man and working woman and say, come back to us as Democratic parties, we get it, we understand it. And I'll tell you this too, I know Steve Pierce. People have been trying to get me to run against Steve Pierce for a long time. In fact, they're still trying to get me to run for Congress down there. And let me tell you one thing about it. He didn't get in this race after spending $100,000 of polling, putting his name against the congressman, not believing that he could give up a House seat, a safe House seat, knowing and believing that he can win this race. For any of us that think that just because we know we're not going to vote for Steve Pierce, that the Republicans don't have a strategy to elect another Republican governor, we're selling ourselves short, and we better not ignore the New Mexicans who aren't being spoken to and aren't coming out to vote. I'm going to be that kind of governor. That's the life I've grown up in. I speak Spanish to people. I am able to relate in a way to them that, frankly, is my own upbringing. And I want to bring a lot of Democrats back to our party and broaden our base, and I hope that's what we'll do to elect a Democrat governor. And not only do so with the numbers, but frankly do so with pride. A diverse party, a party that reflects the best of who we are as New Mexicans.
Well, I can tell you right now, I'm 55 years of age. What you're seeing is what you're getting. You know why I'm in this race? Because everybody in this race asks for my support. Everybody in this race knows I work with everybody. Everybody in this race knows I have Republican and Democratic friends and Independent friends. Everybody in this race knows I grew up in Las Cruces and have tremendous support down south. In fact, last week, they're asking me to move back to Cruces to run for CD2 because they know I can win the South. My father won the North 20-1. I'm Norteño. And Joseph is right. The Latino 15 generations have left our party. The Latino 15 generations are not represented here today. There's one candidate that's going to bring them to the table. There's one candidate that's going to bring them home. And you're talking to them. And that's why I decided to run, because our children, our communities, Rio Arriba, Taos, Las Vegas, the plebe, where I come from, is not being represented by this party. It's not being represented by job opportunities. Doesn't see opportunity, doesn't see hope. And my competition wants to call me angry Latino? Damn right. Because you know what? It's going to take leadership like mine It's going to take leadership like mine and my family's that's going to bring the Latinos back to this party. That's going to be representation back to this party. And that's what it's about. We have to bring hope. We have to bring opportunities. We have to invest into the rural communities, into those communities. And folks, stop coming here and let's go to the south side of town and visit with them. That's what we need to do. So until we start doing that, until we start going to door, until we start hanging out at the boys club like I did, that Latino is not going to be here. And let's remember one thing. Every Democrat won in the South last election. Steve Pierce won 65% because the Latinos voted for him. The Latinos voted for Trump up north because they didn't like the other candidate, not because they like Trump. I want you to do your homework. Find out who they're supporting in this race. Sure. They want me to wrap up. Look, there's not much I can say. Much more I can say. There's a lot more details. I hope you take away from tonight that I'm not a kid from Santa Fe or Las Cruces that wanted to get into politics and start a new career at the age of 55. I gave up a corporate job. I gave up 20 years of cruising and watched my 9-year-olds. I could be home tonight with my 9-year-olds. Folks, this is it, man. This is our turning point. We don't invest in somebody new. We don't bring new ideas to the table. We don't bring the plebe and the Latinos back to our party. I can promise you Steve Pierce is going to be governor. And there's one person in this race that can do it. And I'm challenging you to look at it. So I'm not running for governor because my dad was. And I'm definitely not running for governor because I was told to wait my turn by a congressperson. I'm running for governor to turn New Mexico around because it's New Mexico's turn. It's our kids' turns. It's your turns. It's our grandchildren's turns. And that's why I'm running. And I ask you tonight, vote for me, support me, and spread the word. And don't believe any polls because we have many paths to victory. And the folks that voted against the sugar tax are coming my way. You can promise me, I can promise you, we're going to be right there. And this administration, just like my father's, represented everybody. Everybody's going to get early family intervention. Everybody's going to get early child development. Everybody's going to get job training. Everybody's going to get educated. Everybody's going to have a job. Everybody's going to help us create 225,000 new jobs, $1.8 billion new tax revenue. And yes, we are going to invest into renewables, invest into small business, invest into agriculture. And Peter and I were the first two candidates that said we're going to legalize cannabis. And I want you to leave on this. My father in 1978 signed the Medical Marijuana Act into law. New Mexico was the first state to have medical marijuana. Never knowing 2 years later, his own son, me, would use it to get to chemotherapy because I went through cancer 37 years ago. Folks, we know the medical benefits. We've learned from Colorado and other states. 32,000 new jobs, folks, when we legalize it and expand it. $200 million new tax revenue. So if you're tired of the same old, if you're tired of the political experience, what if we invest into a new guy that knows politics, grows up in it, has friends that are Republican, Democrat, plebe, East Side, South Side, that can bring them all together? I want you to go home and think about it. Because the last thing we want is Steve Pierce in office.
Thank you. I want to close with a couple of stories. First one happened Friday. I was campaigning down south, and I got a speeding ticket in Deming. And I haven't got a speeding ticket in 20 years. And I get out of my car, I'm in my socks because I'm still dressed in sweats because I wasn't at the campaign event yet. And I'm talking to the state patrolman, and he says, "That bumper sticker on your car, is that current?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm running for governor. I didn't want to bring that up because I don't want to influence you." And he's like, "Oh." And I go, "But you know you're going to brag to your friends. You gave the governor a ticket." And he goes, "You're not going to hunt me down." I'm like, nah, we want to be above board here. So we're talking politics. Now this guy clearly is a conservative Republican. And he's looking at my issues and he says to me, I say to him, "Look, if I win, the independents are going to break to me 2-1. Because it's not in the middle. It's who talks square, who doesn't take corporate money. They're going to break to me 2-1. And then without me prompting him, he says, "Yeah, and if one of the other candidates win, they're going to go back to the Republican Party." So that's how we're going to win the general election. We're going to understand that the independents aren't in the middle. They're concerned about truth and honesty and real policies. They're not Republican or Democrat because they're between them. They're independent because they're sick of the insular nature that we've had. Second thing, why am I running? So I have been thinking about this for a while. And then this year, January 1st, my gift from the legislature was I lost $45,000 in alcohol prevention contracts because their solution, rather than raise alcohol taxes, their solution to the budget crisis was to cut back prevention for kids and lay off teachers. And these are Democrats making those decisions. All right. So I went to my wife, my fiance, not wife yet, and I said, "I'm gainfully unemployed now." She said, "Okay, Peter, I'll pick up some extra shifts. You go do good in the world." I'm at the top of my field nationally. I'm nationally recognized for the curriculum I write. I could retire and be easy. I'm doing this because I need to give back to the community. It's about service. I'm not getting paid. I'm working as hard as I can possibly work. That's why I'm running. Last thing I want to tell you, it's all about discernment. If people had discernment, they could tell Trump was a liar and he wouldn't have got elected. All right? You got to use your own discernment. You got to put aside who's my horse in the race, who's my favorite, and you got to say, is this person telling me the truth? And you got to check, number one, does their record match up? Number two, do they have the money things that they're going to have to pay off? And then you're going to have to look in the heart, because these are all good people. Jeff and Joe and Michelle are all good people. But you got to look at the records, and you got to look at the money. And that's why I think it's time to have an outsider in this race who's not afraid to say 100% renewable energy, single-payer health care, living wages across the board of $15 an hour, publicly owned state bank, and, of course, early childhood education. Many, many blessings to you. Thank you. And since all the other candidates went long at least once and I did not, I'm going to say I'm not taking any corporate money, so I'm really, really hurting for staff. It's up to you if you want to see the change. Talk to me afterwards if you want to volunteer to help out. Take care.
So I particularly enjoyed early in the evening when we talked about what's happening nationally, and we celebrated the beginning with a celebration of what happened nationally. And so I want to end on the note of celebration and with a story. The President of the United States is a man who has built mega buildings and high rises and golf courses and resorts in all places of the world, and billions of dollars of investment. He clearly lives in a world that's complicated. And yet, when he came to Washington, D.C. as an outsider, as a person who was proud of his inexperience, the fact he was going to drain the swamp, he has struggled. He's been unable to accomplish anything. And I've got to tell you, I don't agree with anything that Donald Trump has ever said. I don't agree with anything he believes in, to be honest with you. But there was one moment in this man's presidency that I want to focus on with you as I close. When Donald Trump talked about during the campaign he was going to bring health care and it was going to be cheaper and better and everyone was going to love it. He was going to get it done in his first 100 days. You all remember this. You're all laughing and you're all smiling about it. And for a man who was able to accomplish all of the things he was able to accomplish or not accomplish in business, it looked easy to him. And in only one moment of this man's presidency, I saw into his soul and I thought for one moment he was honest with me. You all remember the moment. It's the moment when he lost all of that and he said, "This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be." In this campaign, there's going to be a lot of agreement by those of us that are running for governor. The ideas that you're hearing tonight, we've heard every session. I've heard them all before. Everything on the jobs program, they're all rehashed ideas of things that are being pressed nationally and here at the state level. But the job's harder than it looks. It's harder than you think it is. And that's why you have great people like Peter Worth and Matthew McQueen, smart, bright people you can be proud of that I want to work alongside, and I've worked alongside for years because I know how hard it is. And I know how hard it is to do it because I passed the bills that have been hard to do. I've left you with some of the examples tonight, the Whistleblower Protection Act, the Fraud Against Taxpayers Act, bills that go back to get back all of the money that was taken from our state by Wall Street outsiders. Those are bills that I sponsored passed, the gun bills, the marijuana bills. You've heard about them from me tonight because I want you to understand that I love a fight. I love a challenge. I don't shrink back from that. And when it's come down to the greatest challenges in our legislature and the most difficult bills to pass, my colleagues have come to me and asked me to carry them because they know that I'll put in the work and I'll put in the fight, and because I know how hard it is to get things done and don't take it for granted. There's a lot of people who want to do good things, and I'll tell you this, Jeff talks with pride, rightfully so, of his dad. His dad served in the Senate when he became governor. It's been almost a half century since we've had somebody come from the legislature to become governor, and my colleagues will say, you can't elect somebody from the legislature to be governor. I reject the Trump idea that we need to bring people from this governor or the president who have no experience or no background. So I'll end with you on this. My time is up. I've been coming up to Santa Fe for a long time. Every time I leave, my wife and I were married here. We've been married 25 years. We'll celebrate our 25th anniversary this February during the session. Every session, my wife tells me the same thing. She does the math and she figures out how long I've been gone from home, living in a hotel here in Santa Fe. For all of the years that I've been here in the House and Senate, the special sessions, it adds up to years that I've been away from home. And she says, you know what, you've been away from your daughters, you've been away from me for those years. You better make sure that you're doing something that's worth it and right. And that's why I take on the hard issues. That's why I take on the fight, because I'm not up here to build a resume. I'm not looking for a higher office. I'm here to make a difference and go home to my wife and my family and my community and to all of you New Mexicans and say, I fought the good fight, and I've won plenty of those battles along the way. I'm proud of those accomplishments. I think we need a governor who has experience and knows how to get things done, not just talk about the goals and plans for the next administration, but can show the difficult job of getting those things done with this legislature and in our state. Thank you for inviting me all the way to Santa Fe. I've got 4 hours to get home tonight, so thank you all very much.